You've probably heard of it, right? It's one of aviation's most haunting legends. 5 U.S. Navy bombers, 14 men, just gone, vanished right out of the sky. So the big question is, was this some paranormal event? Or was it something much more down to earth? Let's get into the real story of Flight 19.
I mean, listen to that quote. As if they had flown to Mars. It just perfectly captures the popular myth, doesn't it? This whole idea of a sudden, totally inexplicable disappearance into thin air. You know, this single story, well, it pretty much became the cornerstone for the entire Bermuda Triangle legend.
But what if that's not what happened at all? What if the actual truth is, in its own way, even more chilling? Because the real story of Flight 19, it's a tale of human error, of technology failing at the worst possible moment, and a whole cascade of tragic decisions that sealed their fate.
Okay, so before we get to the facts, let's just quickly touch on the legend, the big, sensational story that's been hooking people for decades. And the story goes something like this, right? December 5th, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy bombers, poof, gone without a trace, swallowed up by the spooky Bermuda Triangle. It's clean, it's simple, it's mysterious, it's a great story. It's just not what actually happened.
All right, let's put the legend aside. We're going to go back to that day, December 5th, 1945, and we're going to piece together what happened using the official Navy records and, crucially, the actual radio transcripts.
And the first thing you need to know is this was not a sudden event. Not at all. This whole crisis played out over several hours. I mean, the flight started out as just another routine training mission. Everything was fine. They took off, completed their bombing runs over the Bahamas, no problem. But then, well, that's when things started to go wrong, and the situation just got worse and worse all afternoon.
And this right here, this is the exact moment it all changed. The moment a routine mission became a desperate fight for survival. He's not talking about aliens or some mysterious fog. That's the voice of a pilot facing an absolute nightmare scenario. He's lost, his instruments are failing, and he's got 13 other men looking to him to get them home safe. Okay, so now that we have the actual timeline, let's do some myth busting. We're going to take the biggest myths about this whole thing and just tear them down, one by one, using the hard evidence from the investigation. All right, myth number 1, and this is the big one, right? The absolute heart of the legend. The idea that Flight 19 got swallowed up by the infamous Bermuda Triangle, this place where the laws of physics supposedly just take a day off. The fact? They weren't even close to it. The official Navy investigation placed their last known position way off the coast of Florida, far from the so-called Bermuda Triangle. And here's the kicker. That term, Bermuda Triangle, it didn't even exist back then. It was invented years later, and then people went back and slapped it onto this story to make it sound way more mysterious than it actually was. Okay, next myth. The idea that all 5 planes just blinked out of existence at the exact same time, like they just winked out. Again, it points to something spooky and supernatural. The reality? Well, it's a lot less mysterious and a lot more tragic. 4.5 hours. That is how long they were in radio contact after their problems began. They didn't just vanish, they were lost, and we have the transcripts to prove it. Now this is what people always bring up as the ultimate proof that something weird was going on. Not only did Flight 19 disappear, but a rescue plane sent to find them also vanished. Well, this is a textbook example of how myths get started. The rescue plane was lost, that part is true, but it wasn't a mystery. It was a PBM Mariner, an aircraft that had a nasty nickname, the Flying Gas Tank, because they were known to explode in midair. The Navy knew exactly what happened. It was a tragic but completely separate accident. So if we rule out all the supernatural stuff, what are we left with? Well, let's follow the evidence and actually solve this thing once and for all. It really wasn't one single thing that doomed Flight 19. It was a perfect storm of small failures. First, the flight leader, though experienced, was new to the area. Then, his compasses failed, both of them. The weather starts getting nasty, and in that confusion, he makes a fatal error. He became convinced they were over the Florida Keys, so he led his men further out into the vast Atlantic until their only option was to ditch into the stormy seas. So the logical conclusion is they flew for hours, got lost, and ran their tanks dry. That makes sense. But this is where the investigation uncovered one last, absolutely heartbreaking twist. The post-incident fuel analysis revealed something startling.
Based on their flight time, the plane should have had a massive amount of fuel left. We're talking around 230 gallons each.
So what does that mean in practical terms? It means they had enough fuel for another 6+ hours of flight time. They could have flown hundreds of miles in any direction and made it back to land.
So why on earth would they ditch? And this is the crucial point. Under immense stress, with darkness falling and no land in sight, they made a decision based on what they thought was happening. They believed their fuel was gone. They ran out of options and daylight before they ran out of gas.
So why do we still talk about this tragedy today? Because what happened to Flight 19, its legacy, completely transformed aviation safety forever.
I mean, this comparison says it all. The technologies that would have saved Flight 19, things like redundant GPS, satellite communication, real-time weather data, are now standard on every single aircraft. Their tragedy directly led to a revolution in how we fly. Yup, Flight 19 became one of the most important case studies in aviation history. It forced a total revolution in navigation, search and rescue, and pilot training. The incredibly safe system of air travel we all rely on today, a lot of it was built on the lessons learned from that terrible day. In the end, the story of Flight 19 isn't about supernatural forces at all. It's a sobering reminder of how a few small, seemingly insignificant problems, bad weather, faulty equipment, human error, can cascade into an absolute catastrophe. The real legacy of Flight 19 isn't the mystery of their disappearance, but the countless lives that have been saved by the lessons we learned from their sacrifice.